Welcome to this episode of Mainline Connect. I'm Jennifer Lynn Robinson, and my guest today is Calvin Purnell Jr. Welcome.
Thank you.
Calvin is the founder of CP Speaks and also a published author of this fabulous book I read called Polished. So we're going to talk about you and your book and everything today, and I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, you know, we like to start off talking about something with networking to help all those other entrepreneurs out there with what they're doing. And one of the things, you know, I follow you on social media, and one of the things I've noticed that I found really interesting and I think has probably worked very successfully for you is since your book has come out a few months ago, you have these posts where you'll say something like, polish landed in the hands of, and then it'll be, you know, a great executive or somebody that's, you know, famous or locally prominent or maybe in another part of the country, and they'll pose with the book, and it's great kind of social media exposure. It's great kind of PR for yourself. Is that something you came up with?
That was kind of like off the cuff.
Okay.
A colleague of mine, her name is Mary, she was the first person, as far as I know, to receive the copy of Polished.
Okay.
And she posted a picture on social media, and I saw that. I was like, wow, that's a great idea. So at that point, I just started posting pictures as people started sending them to me. And sometimes it was just random. People that I don't know would send me a picture, say, hey, I have your book, or they send an email or a message on Facebook or LinkedIn, and they would just say, hey, I purchased your book. So that was just really the aim that I was going for. I thought it was a great opportunity, something that I haven't really seen before with authors, so I just figured I'd take that avenue.
Yeah, I mean, anything you can do to kind of make yourself stand out, and I think I haven't seen that before, and I love it. So some of the people have been doing it on their own. Now, the people who maybe message you, do you then take the next step and say, hey, it'd be great if you could send me a picture with the book? Or?
I have, yes.
Yeah,
yes, that's something that I definitely did and continue to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just a great opportunity to get that exposure, as well as recognizing those individuals who actually purchased my book, and, you know, just giving them a shout out saying, hey, I really appreciate what you've done. And sometimes if I know what position they hold in the company that they work for, I'll recognize that in the post as well.
Yeah, that's great. No, I love it. I think it's a very, very creative campaign.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I read the book. I loved it. I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell our viewers who the audience for the book is. Why did you write it, and kind of who is it geared towards?
Okay, so it is geared towards young professionals, and more so along the lines of individuals who are graduating high school, going into a technical trade school or college, individuals who are graduating from college, and even for some older people who just don't know what direction they want to go in, but yet they see a professional career for themselves and they start to develop that. I believe there's a lot of information in this book that can definitely help anyone at this point. It's just, you know, it's basically a mentor in a book, just things that have helped me along the way. And, you know, reason behind writing the book came from about 3.5 years ago. I started working for a company called FiberLink Communications, which is now part of IBM due to acquisition. And at the time, I realized I was the oldest person on the team. And some of the guys, they just didn't have mentors. You could just tell by the way they carried themselves and the way that they acted and conducted themselves in the organization. And I felt spiritually God was saying, now's the time to put this information out. And I just started plugging away and writing as much as I could.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at the start of my career, but I feel like I picked up some really great tips from your book. So I know it's geared towards younger professionals, but I think there's really a lot of positive things that anybody can learn from it, which I love.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, I know you've been in the IT field for a while, and, you know, on a personal level, I've been kind of struggling with the idea of writing a book for, I'd say, at least 3, maybe more years. So the fact that you work full time and that you've managed to write this book and get it out there and, you know, doing everything that goes along with that, with marketing it and getting the word out, and I'm sure doing events and things related to the book. And so I'm just kind of wondering how you balance it all, because clearly I haven't been able to do that for myself. So any tips that you have for not only somebody like me, but, you know, there's a lot of people out there who feel like they have a story to tell, or, you know, they want to write a book about their expertise, but, you know, how do you fit it all in?
So really it's just starting. You have to start somewhere. And a lot of people ask, do you start at the beginning? The answer to that is no. Because how do you know what the beginning is? Some people do know, and you know, if you've taken courses on writing, you know, they'll tell you to write outlines and get things structured that way. But I didn't go that route. I just started writing, and as time went on, I started piecing the book together based on chapters and where I saw that they fit properly as far as alignment was concerned, and what the flow was going forward. You know, and really it's just, like I said, just starting anywhere. If you choose to write it out by hand, on a computer.
What did you do?
I did it on my iPad.
On your iPad,
I carried my iPad everywhere that I go, well, everywhere that I went when I was writing Polished. And it was just break it out whenever I had an opportunity. Something came up, something that triggered my brain, made me think, oh, this would be a great opportunity to pop this in the book. I would just write.
Okay, that's smart.
Yeah.
So, you know, some people do it very differently. Like, I've heard people writing books who say, okay, well, I designate an hour each morning, or I take Wednesday and Friday afternoons and I write for 3 hours. But it sounds like you just kind of fit it in, you know, as either something struck you or you had time, or both.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard because sometimes I tried to go that route to say, okay, I'm going to allocate this time frame, these particular days to write. I couldn't do it.
Right. Sometimes you just have nothing to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And life happens. You know, you go through situations that can trigger emotions that just won't allow you to populate any good information into the book. So you just have to gauge yourself and just write whenever you feel the opportunity comes about.
And how long did it take you to write the book?
It took about 3 years from beginning to end, and that was time, you know, from writing consistently to maybe taking 6 months off and then picking it back up here and there. So it took from 3 years of starting to actually physically having the first copy in my hand.
Okay. And what did that feel like? I know it just came out a few months ago.
Oh,
it must be amazing.
Yes,
yeah.
It was definitely a great feeling to actually see my name on a book that I've always wanted to write, and just along the lines of, you know, saying I actually did it. It's just motivation, and it gives me the drive to continue to write and just continue to put information out there for the world to receive, because I have a lot of information to offer, just as well as anybody else. And, you know, I'm all about paying it forward, and I just want to make sure that I can give back to the community, to the world, and just as many people as possible. That's
great. So, Anna, one of the things I read in your book is that you write that each of us has a success formula. But one thing I noticed for you is that includes really a strong faith and a belief in God, which it doesn't for everybody.
Right.
So, you know, I was wondering how you felt about that. I mean, there are people that are very successful that are not, you know, strong faith-based or religion-based. Do you think it's necessary as a component of success?
I think so.
Yeah.
And for me personally,
it is. Yeah.
It is for me, just based on background. My mother, born and raised in a church, and she was strict about going to church every Sunday that I could possibly go. And then as time went on, when I became of age, I just made a decision not to go myself. But I'm strong in my prayer, I'm strong in my devotionals, and I'm strong in believing in God and knowing that God has helped me along my way. Just some of the things that I've gone through in my life, dealing with adversity, dealing with success, just dealing with life, period. So I feel personally that it is a strong, it definitely gives you the ability to have a stronger backing, having a faith in your background. I'm not going to say Christianity specifically, but that's what works for me.
Just faith-based,
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and so I love this idea of having an invisible counsel that you mentioned in the book, and I'd love you to elaborate more on that.
Sure. So the Invisible Council is composed of, let's see, I'll start with Eckhart Tolle. He's still alive. He is all about mindfulness, awareness, and now, and letting go the ego. He's someone I was introduced to, I want to say, almost 10 years ago through therapy that I put myself in. And it was a great opportunity for me to understand, you know, we all have egos. Sometimes it's best to let them go. It's hard to do that.
It is hard.
So I tried to go that route, but it's very difficult to do it, but I just continue to practice as much as I can. The second is Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill, he was a great businessman. He wrote this book that I read multiple times called Outwitting the Devil. And that book, to me, it has a lot of information about life, a lot of information about business and how you conduct yourself in both personal and professional. And he just opened up the world to me when it comes to so much about, you know, living your life properly, being good to people, and just being a good professional if you can, and just starting businesses if you have the opportunity to, and also giving back. And like I said, I've read that book probably like 6 times at this point. Next would be my paternal grandfather. He's no longer here. His name is Purnell, and he actually showed me, just through experiences and stories that he's told us growing up, that you have to continue going for what you want. He worked hard every day. He built the house that I knew was my grandfather's house by hand, every day after work, working 8 hours, and he would walk from where he worked to the house that he built, and built it by hand. Raised 5 boys, my father included, and it was just a great opportunity to have that experience. And then next will be my maternal grandparents, and my grandmother, Jessie Riddick. She was a very hard worker. She was dedicated to her family, dedicated to making sure she helped others. She was a nurse, and she was a private duty nurse. And I've seen her work so much, just constantly trying to improve her life, trying to help others and help the family as well. And next would be my grandfather, Glover Riddick. He was the best storyteller I've ever met. And I feel like that's where I get my skill of writing books, telling stories, from my grandfather, Glover Riddick. He just was able to captivate a room. He can make anybody laugh. So it was just, you know, something that sits well with me, having an invisible counsel, because those are people who impact my life. And, you know, I just think back to the stories and lessons that I was taught by them, and I just continue to have that in my heart and in my mind and in my spirit, and just move forward, because they've worked hard and they've been successful. There's no reason why I can't.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so I love that. And you know, along those lines, a couple people you mentioned were authors, and I love that you have a section at the end of this book that you wrote, telling people, you know, these are some books that have had a great impact on my personal and business success. And you know, I actually purchased a couple of them from Amazon that I hadn't read, and I love that you included that for people. So yeah, that's something I felt it was definitely a necessary a need for the book. Because we can't do it all by ourselves. You know, we have to get information from other sources, and I feel as though those authors, the information that they piled in those books, they definitely helped me. So I want to make sure that I give them recognition for what they've done for me and what they'll continue to do for me. And I think also the idea that you just always have to continue to educate yourself. You know, you're never done. You
right.
know,
right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. As busy as we are, you have to keep learning, whether it's webinars or books, and you kind of have to not just maintain your skills, but improve what you're doing.
I agree. That's my mission right now is just continuously working on personal development, whether I pay for it or I find it online for free. It's something that I have to do. I just have to continue to grow.
So, you know, one of the things that struck me about the book is how much importance you give to people making judgments about your first impressions. And, you know, a lot of that, of course, is your skill sets and things like that. But initially, it's about appearance. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And, you know, I know a lot of things, you know, I've read say that it takes less than 3 seconds to make a first impression. And, of course, it takes much longer to undo a bad impression. So how important is that for people, especially, you know, the audience you focus on, people coming out of school and, you know, making kind of one bad first impression? You know, how do you educate people to not do that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I definitely think first impressions is the best impression, the one that you should focus on the most. People look at you up and down. You know, I've learned from women. I start from the feet and work my way up.
Right.
And, you know, it's something that I just do. If you take care of your shoes, and I know that you probably take care of yourself.
Yep.
You know, your feet, you have to take care of them. But definitely, you know, you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward and present yourself properly. You know, you may work in an organization where it requires you to dress in a business casual attire or business attire, or it could just be, you know, relaxed. Whatever it is, you need to make sure that you put your best foot forward, present yourself properly, make sure your clothes are clean, make sure they're pressed, and just make sure you're groomed properly. And even if you walk around with a scruffy face, wild hair, if that's your style, own it.
Right.
And that way people will know, okay, this person isn't just walking around looking sloppy, maybe because their hair isn't groomed properly. That's just their particular style. And I think that makes a big difference if you can say, this is who I am, and operate that way. It'll help, and it'll make you feel better, because, you know, sometimes you do have to put a costume on just based on, you know, environments. And I've been in that place before where I had to put costumes on and just say, you know what, I want to fit in, I want to succeed. These are the things that I have to do in order to do it. I may not like it at first, but I'll adapt, because this is where I want to go.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, you know, there's been this story in the news lately about this group of interns at Yahoo that were rebelling against the dress code, and I think they thought they were going to accomplish something, and my understanding is they basically got taken into a conference room and fired. You know, you can't adhere to our dress code, you're just an intern, you know, there's the door.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, honestly, I agree with the termination. It's sad that it happened, but I agree with it, because there are rules in place, and you have to follow the rules. If you choose to break the rules, there are consequences behind that. And back in 2000, a friend of mine, actually my daughter's babysitter, the first babysitter, she pulled me to the side. She says, Calvin, one thing that you need to know is you can choose your choices, but you can't choose your consequences. And that stuck with me. So those interns, they chose their choice. They wanted to rebel. They wanted to say, you know what, let's put a petition together, and let's see if we can get this signed, and we can just get this dress code, you know, abolished and move forward. We can come to work whatever way we want. But you break the rules, you pay the consequences. But I do want to recognize there was one individual, one intern, that actually decided not to conform. That person said, you know what, I'm not going to be a part of that group. I'm going to set myself apart. and I'm going to abide by the rules, and that in turn kept their job.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think when you're coming into a big company like that where there's an established corporate culture and you're just an intern, you don't make the rules.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, and you have to understand that. I mean,
Right.
I think sometimes people that are younger, or the so-called millennial generation. I mean, it's a very great creative generation, but I mean, they're still, like you said, sometimes you have to put the costume on.
Yeah. And I think too, that comes from a lack of mentors.
Yeah.
Because if mentors were in their lives, the mentors would have said, you know what, these are the rules that you have to abide by. Follow them,
right.
regardless. If you don't have the proper attire, do your best.
Yeah.
Just do your best and make sure you do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. So, something else that you spend a lot of time in the book talking about, which of course is close to my heart, is the idea of networking and
yes.
how that's helped you be a success and how that continues to help you be a success. And you're a self-proclaimed introvert that
yes.
you mentioned in the book. And I loved what you said about getting to an event and kind of having conversations with people so that you establish yourself as somebody that somebody has to get to know. Like, I need to talk to this person. They look like they know a lot of people, or they're interesting, or they're fun to talk to. I need to see what's going on with them.
Right.
And I think that's great. I give a lot of advice to people about networking, and I think stepping into that networking event sometimes, especially as an introvert, people are not comfortable.
Right.
And I think having conversations with people can help you be more comfortable. But like you said, it makes you kind of then who's that person? I need to get to know them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It worked for me, and it continues to work for me because being an introvert, it is difficult going to networking events, and I'll go through a few step process that I actually had to take. A few years back, one of my mentors, his name is Mike Andrews, he put together a networking group called the Circle of Trust.
Okay.
And that was around the time when I said, you know what, I really need to start networking because there are certain areas in my life that I want to improve upon. So it gave me an opportunity to practice. Going into those networking events, being nervous, being an introvert, just scared me. There were times when I would pay for networking events and would get to the door and say, you know what, I can't do this. And I would turn
I've heard
around
that from people.
and I would walk away, and that's money wasted. But going to the Circle of Trust networking events, it definitely helped me just get together my elevator speech and get that pitch out there, so that way I'm comfortable speaking to people about who I am and what I can do to help them. It's something that definitely I recommend to other people who are introverts, just put yourself out there as much as you can, because networking is going to take you a long way.
Right.
It's going to take you so far, you won't realize how far it's going to take you until you actually get involved in it and help other people. But the other part about it was the networking piece when you go in and meet and introduce yourself, or I'm sorry, not introduce, but you go in and you talk to the people that the hosts of the networking events. And I do that purposely because it gives me an opportunity to get into my comfort zone, have a few laughs and crack some jokes with some of the people that I know, and it just makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. And at that point, other people are approaching me versus me approaching them, because that's the hardest thing for me to do as an introvert, is to approach people.
And you make it easier for yourself, right?
Right.
No, I think it was great advice. That's why I wanted to mention it, because I do have a lot of clients that do exactly what you say. They pay for events and don't go, or they tell them, they kind of have a conversation in their own head, like, okay, I'm just going to go and meet one new person and then I can leave. And, they just don't put their best foot forward. But I think a lot of it is, kind of some of the tips that you've given and that I try to give people, but it really is a practice makes perfect kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, for a lot of people, it doesn't come naturally, and the less you do it and the more afraid you are of it, the worse it's going to go, I think. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, I was glad to hear that. So, I think one of the things that you talk about a lot is the idea of paying it forward. And I know a lot of younger people I talk to, like I speak at, colleges and universities and things like that sometimes, and people say, well, I want a mentor, I want people who are going to help me get a start, but I don't have anything to give back, to provide them. Like I can't introduce them to people, or I don't have skill sets, or I don't have the connections, and they kind of feel like it's a one-sided relationship. And I know you talk in the book about some things that people don't realize that they can do as sort of a pay-it-forward idea. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so for people who feel like they don't have much to offer, you need to realize that you have a lot to offer. Because if you're looking for a mentor, what you offer that mentor is the fact that they need to learn how to mentor you. They need to learn how, because you as an individual, you're not like a cookie cutter. Mentoring is not a cookie cutter process. You have to learn who that individual is, and you have to figure out what to tailor specifically for that person and say, you know what, these are the things that I need to give this person and pour into them. So you're teaching your mentors and other people how to mentor you, how to train you, how to guide you. So those are the things that you have to offer. And once they realize that, it makes life a lot easier. And then you start to learn things, and then as that individual becomes a mentor, they learn how to mentor those other people. So there's a lot that people realize that they don't realize that they have to offer, but there's just so much out there for themselves.
I agree. I agree. Tell me about the ready, set, go mentality.
Okay, so that's just that's something that I learned and picked up as I was writing this book, realizing that you never know who you're going to meet, when you're going to meet that person. You want to make sure that however you're dressed, you want to make sure that you're dressed properly. And you can be on an elevator, you can be on a train, you could be sitting next to your next employer. You just don't know. And being in ready, set, go mode, if you're always ready, you don't have to get ready. The other part behind that is, one thing that I've learned is making sure my resume is always up to date. I've gone into jobs where I would work for the company, and months will go by, years will go by where I wouldn't update my resume. And if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, I've seen what you've been doing. I've been watching you. Can you send me your most recent resume?" And at that point, I'm like, crap. It's not ready. I have to get it to that point where I could submit it. And that could take a day, it could take 2 days, it could take a week, 3 weeks. Now you've lost your opportunity. So if you're in that position where your resume is ready, it's good to go. You can send it off. You can have it on your phone, push it forward in email, and you're good. And even if it's, with your attire, you never know. Wherever you work, if you work in a metropolitan area, maybe you have a business casual environment. You can go to work in slacks and a shirt, throw in a tie every now and again, because you're walking down the street. You never know who you'll bump into.
And I think that also goes for recommendations. A lot of people, if you look at their LinkedIn, for example, they won't really have recommendations, but they have all this expertise and years of experience, and there are people out there that they should have asked for recommendations to have it on their profile, but they don't. And sometimes they'll wait till they're laid off from a job or they're in a transition period, and then they'll scramble to get the recommendations, which probably would have been stronger had they been closer to working with that client or, doing a job for them. So I think people do themselves a disservice in that regard, too.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, I love the idea of kind of charting your own career path, and making your intentions known. I think that so many people, and I'm not singling out any generation or age for this, I think people of every age, every level of expertise in the career world do it. They kind of think, okay, well, I work hard, I'm doing a good job, and therefore good things are going to come to me. The company will recognize me, know that I want to move to the next level, or know that I want to be a manager or director or whatever it is, and it doesn't happen. And then they sit back and think, well, I guess I need to work harder, and I need to take more on, and I need to show them that I'm the right person, instead of just saying, hey, let me raise my hand and tell you, this is my plan. This is what I want to do. I would love to be, the next HR director for the company, and I just want to put that out there and make my intention known. And very few people do that. Why do you think that is?
I think they think they're going to be recognized.
Yeah.
And they do get recognized. They get recognized for the hard work that they do, how great of a job they do it, and the recognition comes in, wow, we're going to give them, we may give them a raise, but we're not going to promote them to the next level because they are great at what they do right now. So we don't want to lose this individual. And, I think that individuals need to come up and say, okay, I want to go this particular direction within my career. So you make it known within your organization. You talk to your director, your manager, if you have those type of relationships with them, and you just let them know, this is the direction that I see myself going. These are the particular things that I'm doing to get myself to be ready for that next opportunity. If something comes up, please let me know. I would be more than happy to entertain the idea.
Yeah.
And even outside of your current position, it could be outside of the organization. You want to start looking for other opportunities. I'm a big proponent of making sure that you're always looking. I constantly look. I'm comfortable in the role that I'm in now, but I know this isn't my final stop. I know where I want to go. It's not sitting in the seat that I'm in. I'm preparing myself to get out of the way of the next person that's going to take my role. And I'm hoping that the next person's seat that I'm taking is preparing themselves to move on so I can take that role as well. But you have to be ready for that, those opportunities, and make it known.
So maybe this is a good time to ask about your business, which is called CP Speaks. Tell us about that.
Okay, so CP Speaks is basically an organization that I started back in December. It's a motivational speaking organization tied in with my book, Polished, and the next books that are to come. And it's basically geared towards making sure people don't give up on themselves, because that's my tagline. You cannot give up on yourself. You have to continue to push forward in your life, no matter what you're dealing with, because if you stand still, you're not going anywhere. And CP Speaks, it gives me an opportunity to tell people my story, tell people some of the things that I've gone through, and also tell people the success stories that I have behind it, not just the adversity, but also the success stories that have come from, the adversities that I've had in my life, the things that I had to continue to push forward towards, the things that I'm going to push forward towards, and just motivating people just to let them know you have to continue to work for yourself, move forward, because standing still gets you nowhere. Fear sets in, but you have to use fear as fuel.
Right.
And just continue to push forward to have opportunities available for you.
Yeah, and I know, you know, one of the things you're open about in the book is that you were incarcerated at one point, and, you know, that's obviously, I'm sure, has been a lot to overcome. So how do you think you've been able to do that?
Knowing that that wasn't my final stop. You know, the incarceration, it was, you know, a setback for me, and, you know, it was, you know, an opportunity for me to learn. And, you know, I made a mistake. You know, it was a day without thinking. I lost my temper, and I come out with an aggravated assault charge.
Right.
And, you know, that was something that could be detrimental to some, but I didn't want that to be me. I knew that, you know, at that point, I was midway through my career in information technology, and I said, you know what, this isn't my final stop. I'm not coming out of being incarcerated and saying, you know what, I give up on myself. I was determined to get my career back in information technology, and I had the opportunity to do that, getting an opportunity with the National Park Service as a contractor in information technology.
Okay.
I stayed there for over 10 years, almost 10 years. And, you know, it just gave me the opportunity to continue to hone in on my skills and just to branch out and just learn more and to prove that I'm not what people call average as a convicted felon. Some people are repeat offenders. I was determined not to be that.
Yeah.
So it was just me working hard and just pushing forward.
Yeah, I mean, you know, whether it's incarceration or another kind of challenge that people have in life, I feel like there's a lot of people who define themselves by that, and they kind of use it as like a victim kind of status. You know, well, I went through this, or this happened to me, and my life is over, or, you know, people owe me something because this happened. And, you know, I'm sure, as you've learned, life is not like that.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if you're not going to do it for yourself, nobody's going to do it for you.
Right.
So
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And you just have to make sure that the right people have your back. And, you know, those people who have your back, they are the ones who are going to be your advocates, and they're going to just go to war for you and say, you know what, this person did a great job. You know, yes, he was a convicted felon, but these are the things that he's done before and after. So showing that positive light of yourself and pressing forward and having the people having your back, the right people to have your back, nothing can stop you. Only person that can stop you is yourself.
Is yourself, yeah. So I wanted to get the name right. You're involved with this program called the ELECT program, is that? And you're speaking in the Philadelphia School District, and it sounds like it probably goes a little bit along the lines of your motivational speaking, right?
It does, yes.
So tell me more about that.
Yeah. So the Philadelphia School District reached out to me probably May, right after the book came out, and, you know, they were saying, you know, we saw that your book came out, we want to purchase copies of your book, would you be willing to speak to our students? So I said, of course. What's the program? Who are the students that I'm speaking to? So the ELECT program is a program the Philadelphia School District has where they have early parents.
Okay.
So you're early parent, and, you know, they pull you together, and they want to make sure they help you become a high school graduate. They want to help you become a college graduate if that's the choice you choose to make, if you want to go to a technical trade school. Whatever you choose, they want to help you get to that level. And they gave me the opportunity to speak to that group of graduating students, the senior class, on the Spirit of Philadelphia. And, you know, it was a great opportunity for me. It was something that was close to me because my sister was an early parent.
Okay.
And I experienced her going through, you know, some situations with being an early parent in high school. So it gave me an opportunity to tell her story and just to tell, you know, give them an opportunity to say, you know what, my sister went through this. She owned her own hair salon. Now she's going to become a COO of a nonprofit organization. So you can do whatever you want. And that group of individuals, it was mostly young women in the group, but there were some young men as well. I was speaking to the fathers, specifically letting them know, you know, you need to make sure that you stay in your child's life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I gave the same message to the mothers as well, but it's a big deal. You know, it's a huge deal for young men to be involved with their kids, because it makes a difference for them individually and their kids, because their kids see I have a strong male role model in my life, and this person cares about me. It's going to make them want to go the extra mile.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful program. And it's so nice that you had that opportunity and that they reached out. I love it.
It was great.
So what is next for you?
So next, I'm writing 3 books right now.
Okay.
All on my phone. This just because it's the device that I keep the most on me. But yeah, I'm writing 3 books. The follow-up to Polished. Okay. And then the last part to Polished. So it's going to be a trilogy. More along the lines of Polished, saying Polished is, you know, this is what I want to do in my career, and what do I need to do to get there. The next step is, the next book is basically going to be on, okay, I've done those things, what do I do next? And the last book is going to be on leadership. Okay, wonderful.
So if people want to contact you to hire you to come speak or you know, talk about your book or whatever else you have going on, which is so many great things, how can they reach you?
Okay, so they can reach me on my email, which is fine, cp@cpspeaks.com. I'm also on Facebook. You can search for me at Calvin Purnell Jr. LinkedIn, Calvin Purnell Jr. as well. And I am on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Mindfully Speaking. And you can search just Calvin Purnell Jr. That'll come up there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And again, we want to show everybody the book, Polished. If you haven't read it, you know, go out and get it. Like I said, I think tips for everybody of any age, but certainly if you have somebody in your life that's at the age of graduating or close to it, this is what you want them to have. And so thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time.
All right.